So, today we're going to be discussing the topic of the victims of kidnappings, their kidnappers, and the hostages' behavior towards the suspect. Kidnappers tend to develop a profile of their likely target before making an abduction based upon their overall goals, which usually falls into one of three categories: financial gain, extremism, or emotional disturbance. If a kidnapper is going to take a hostage for ransom, he will target the victim based upon an outward appearance of wealth or information given to him from someone who knows the victim intimately, such as household employee, a bank teller, a waitress at the victim's favorite restaurant, or someone else that suspects that the victim has a lot of cash. So for today's abductor, we're going to be talking about Jan Erik Olsson. He was born in 1941 in Ekeby, Bjuv, Sweden. He robbed the bank in 1973 at the age of 32 years old. The days of robbery between August 23rd and August 28th. So not much is known about Olsson except that he was convicted of safe cracking, and once he failed to return to prison after a furlough, he held up a Swedish bank and demanded 3 million Swedish kroner, guns, bulletproof vests, and a getaway car, and his friend Clark Olofsson. When Olsson got Olofsson, the both of them awaited the other items while they kept 4 people hostage. A strange bond began to form between the victims. The victims began to sympathize with their captors, and there are even rumors that one victim wanted to marry Olsson. Eventually, even though the police rescued everyone by drilling a hole through the roof and sending tear gas through it, forcing the criminals to give in, the aftermath of the victims' mental health will forever be recorded in history. The behavior of the victims that day were sympathetic actions and reasoning the hostages gave towards the robbers. This was soon to be called Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is considered a complex reaction to a frightening situation, and experts do agree completely on all of its characteristic features. The data for understanding the syndrome were derived from an actual hostage situation in 1973 that differs from one another in terms of location, number of people involved, and time frame. Many researchers believe that Stockholm Syndrome helps to explain certain behaviors of survivors of World War II concentration camps, members of religious cults, battered wives, incest survivors, and physically or emotionally abused children, as well as persons taken hostage by criminals or terrorists. Most experts, however, agree that Stockholm Syndrome has 3 central characteristics. The hostages have negative feelings about the police or other authorities. The hostages have positive feelings toward their captors. The captors develop positive feelings toward the hostages. Psychological effects of the abducted. The victims were Brigitte Lundbald, age 31. She passed up her chance to escape in order to stay longer with the robbers. KRISTIN ENMARK, age 23. She wanted to escape with the robbers and even felt fearful that the police saying, "I think you are sitting there playing checkers with our lives. I fully trust Clark and the robber. I'm not desperate. They haven't done a thing to us. On the contrary, they have been very nice. But you know, Olofsson, the Prime Minister, what I'm scared of is that the police will attack and cause us to die." She, as well as the other captives, maintained a close relationship with the robbers. ELISABETH OLDGREN, age 21. Even though she was used as a human shield when the police tried to shoot at Olsson, she expressed gratitude when Olsson let her use his coat at night, recalled Jan as a mixture of brutality and tenderness. Sivan Sastorm, 25. Felt gratitude towards Olsson because even though he was told that he'd get shot in the leg, Olsson allowed him to get drunk first. The kidnappers, Jan Erik Olsson, 32. 15 years after the robbery, Olsson reported to have felt guilty about his crimes and even tried to turn himself in, but the police told him not to because the case was so long ago. Clark Olofsson appealed his jail sentence and formed a strong relationship with KRISTIN ENMARK's family for years to come. While there is no 100% positive explanation as to why this happened, psychologists suspect that this is a survival tactic used by the abused or captured to lessen the mental stress on themselves. When faced with a sudden situation where someone is kidnapped, although rare, when these cases do happen, it usually involves a sudden situation, like getting captured, and the victim is forced into an infant-like state where they must rely on their predator for common things. Any small act of kindness may be seen as, my kidnapper abuser is not all bad because, thus developing the disorder. The commonalities and differences in 3 cases. Some similarities. All 3 cases suffered from Stockholm Syndrome. As I stated before, this varies depending on the location, the time frame, and the kidnappers or the abductors. The differences: While the victims of Ariel Castro and the victim Elisabeth Smart spoke out against their captors, the victims of Jan Erik Olsson and Clark Olofsson deeply bonded with them and went through great lengths to defend them. Here's a secondary video